Thank you very much. And now let me invite Professor Ewa Cisek from the University in Science of Technology in Wrocław. Is Professor Cisek with us? Oh, Professor Cisek is online as well. Okay, so we hope to meet you. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me invite you to my presentation. Biodiversity in cities as the synergy of architecture and nature.
Miasta stały się obecnie domem dla połowy ludzkiej populacji.
So the cities have become home to half of the human population. By 2050, 2/3 of people will live in urban conurbations. If we compare these data with progressive climate change, global warming, increasing water deficit and the disappearance of species biodiversity, it becomes clear that the built environment constitutes an area of the greatest importance in the process of achieving the climate neutrality of our planet. Buildings are responsible for as much as 30% of emissions of carbon dioxide. To change this, we need to develop appropriate design strategies to remodel urban structures so as to ensure an increase in the porosity of the urban tissue. This is connected with ensuring the largest biologically active area, the protection of biodiversity, and ensuring the retention of rainwater, its collection and treatment. So eco-education should play a key role, which is directly related to the need to implement wild ecosystems and create ecological education parks. These practices aim at achieving the new model of a city where buildings, as a part of the new ecosystem, create the new image of the city. One of the forms of art integrated with biology is the use of trees to shape the form of the city itself, because life consumes as much energy as possible, creating natural phenomena. So one of the great examples are the project by Stefano Belli that were created in Milan, in Belgium, and in the Netherlands, for instance. Northern Woods in Utrecht is still underway and is to be launched in 2024. These are not only artistic forms that reflect the vegetative cycle of trees. It is also a design strategy that aims at increasing the percentage of biological tissue in urban tissue, thus decreasing temperature. Trees typically produce 41 tons of oxygen per year and absorb fine dust. They also allow us to increase biodiversity and promote ecological education. The Bosco Verticale, that consists of 2 high-rise buildings, is a pilot project that provided an impulse for the development of other projects of this type, not only in Europe but also elsewhere. This eco-structure consists of about 900 trees and 15,000 shrubs. They produce as much oxygen as 1 hectare of forest. Palazzo Verde in Antwerp is a complex of 66 apartments whose integral part are roof gardens that provide common space for residents, as well as green individual private terraces adjacent to residential units. This ecosystem consists of 88 trees, 1,000 shrubs and 1,200 plants. According to the author, in every place where vertical forest is created, climatic conditions are first checked, and on this basis the species of plants are selected. The concept of the selection must also be maintained in the future, which means that the owners of apartments cannot interfere into designed plant compositions and remove them. At the end, the building is designed, and apart from apartments, 30% are apartments dedicated to social housing. Among Polish examples, we may note the green roof of the Warsaw University Library by Irena Bajerska. This building is one of the best examples of combining the architecture with the local ecosystem, which divides the impressive area of 0.5 hectares into 4 colored compositions. So these examples can be called the green acupuncture of a city. They augur changes, introducing nature into developed areas. The colors are similar to nature, and they are unique, which gives them a chance to become attractive landmarks in cities. The new ecosystem that was created by buildings that have lost their previous function but preserved the symbolic function for the city. Revitalizations of former post-industrial areas in connection with a pro-climate policy aimed at recreating old ecosystems and incorporating them into the urban tissue is a trend which is being dynamically developed by many European countries, including Norway. In 2019, Oslo was named the Green Capital of Europe. Well, the percentage of green areas is at 47%. By 2030, the city plans to plant 100,000 new trees. The rivers have contributed to the development of cities, focusing trade and commerce. In Norway, such a river was Akseva, referred to as the mother of Norwegian industry. So one of the most important projects is the reconstruction and transformation of this river that used to be contaminated by sewage and now is a home to colorful flora and fauna. There is an ecological park, 8 kilometers long, surrounded by parks and forests, ensuring biodiversity as well as a number of historic monuments from the Norwegian Industrial Revolution. They are developments from the 19th century that are powered by hydroelectricity. Now they are converted to residential, educational buildings or museums. Even these imperfect buildings, these impressive factories, can be classified as architecture for itself. These buildings have not lost their symbolic impressiveness and significance for the city. They are erected next to waterfalls, just as castles that remain in stark contrast with residential areas. The importance of factories for the cities remains important until this day, especially given the fact that they have been converted and now perform important social functions. One of the most interesting ones concerns Vulcan, which is an old steel plant of 1908, which was adopted in 2010 into Madhallen, which is like a food court and a dance hall. And in 2011, a new hotels were added and a new building that is a residential building hosting artists. Now, one of the other buildings has been also converted into a dormitory for students. 50 bridges that combine the both banks of the river. The old 19th century residential areas for former workers are being revitalized and now are used as social housing. The allotments are still used as the oldest urban gardens. The maintenance of these vegetable gardens is a part of the climate policy of the city that aims at extending the biologically active surface. The environment that follows the landscape in the context of local ecosystem. Well, it turns out that this context is important to support biodiversity. The preferred forms of spatial organizations include residential architecture integrated with education parks. These new urban ecosystems constitute closed local systems created on the basis of existing forest and park greenery concentrated around watercourses and water reservoirs. The environmental context seems to be crucial for organizing such ecostructures, whereas the architectural context is not necessary. This design is a part of deep ecology trend established in the second half of the 20th century in Norway. It is a long-term approach that focuses on increasing biodiversity and educating the residents. The fundamental assumptions of this deep ecology include friluftsliv, so the joy of identification with wildlife, going out to nature that ensures necessary balance and empathy. And in the urban context, this role is performed by new city ecosystems that performs other functions, including residential houses for seniors, educational functions, including forests, kindergartens and schools, as well as services, small gastronomy, focus on local products and community spaces. The purpose of designing these urban ecostructures is to rebuild local ecosystems and to provide residents with knowledge on educational processes and ecological processes, and to reduce the temperature and improve the quality of air. One great example of such actions are the projects from Belgium. Hoboken in Antwerp and the two residential complexes, Groenzoid being one of them, are the examples of restoring wild ecosystem along Schelde and its synergy with residential architecture. Polderstadt was created on the basis of a system ended with small squares, so a layout typical of garden cities. As a result, greenery and residential construction interpenetrate each other, and there is the connectivity between the both. The retention reservoir that is at the very center is connected to a lake in the ecological park. So it performs pro-social function and provides also services for citizens. The development along the street consists of single and multi-family buildings with a large percentage dedicated to social housing where rents are low. The second complex is Groenzoid, which is combined with an educational park. It is connected to that park by an underground tunnel. The green spaces provide recreational possibilities and slowly are transformed into a forest. So the residential construction is quite diverse, and it is quite typical of this region of Flanders. Apart from luxury apartments, we have social housing that account for 25% of all units in this complex. All of the area is biologically active with different degree of accessibility. We have green roofs, as well as systems to retain and collect rainwater. And the final example from Norway of 2008, which is the Park of Ecological Education combined with residential, educational and service functions. And the point was to recreate this system following the closure of an airport that was decommissioned in 1989. So the biodiversity was restored, a new system of rainwater retention was implemented, and the tectonics of the park was remodeled by recycling the humus and the land from the previous airport. The local ecosystem was recreated on the area of 130 hectares, and it has this shape of a starfish, as you can see, with 7 arms. The remaining 200 hectares, located between the arms of this starfish, were allocated to service and educational as well as residential functions, including a house for seniors, a school, and residential complexes. These residential complexes were designed in a way to ensure the penetration of greenery within the complex. They have either group or linear layout with internal courts. Their development is quite low and is well harmonized with single-family construction in the area. So to conclude, let me quote the authors of this concept. The idea must remind us of fragility of human life and life in general that needs a lot of efforts to recover. And to sum up, the implementation of biologically active surfaces, such as wild ecosystems on green roofs, terraces, or park and forest areas that provide also educational functions, contribute to increasing the biological porosity of our urban systems. A building as an integral part of this ecosystem builds cities and allows to diminish the effect of the heat island and improving the quality of air. Architecture that was built for itself in the past obtains new value. The buildings that have lost its meaning gain new functions. So the infrastructure, the degraded environment help to co-create new urban ecosystems, educating the youngest citizens, teaching them empathy and creating conditions for participation, for instance, common gardening. The environmental context seems to be of key importance for the organization of such ecostructure, but the architectural context is not equally important. Biodiversity goes hand in hand with a number of architectural forms. These trends are part of this larger tendency that originates in Norway. It's aimed at combating the climate crisis. Thank you very much for your attention.